Hello and welcome everyone, my name's Capcan and this is a build guide for Poison Exsanguinate Pathfinder in patch 3.22, Trial of the Ancestors League. So basically this is a very popular build currently. It is a pretty good league starter. Pathfinder itself is quite popular and Exsanguinate, self-cast Exsanguinate Poison is one of the most popular builds on the Pathfinder Ascendancy. So before we start with the build itself, I definitely recommend you to subscribe to my channel because there's gonna be a ton of content like this, a bunch of different build guides for popular and unpopular skills that are coming fresh in patch 3.22. There's a bunch of different new support gems that we have, and there's gonna be new builds with them, and I'm gonna cover them all. So yeah, definitely subscribe to the channel if you want to, like the video as well. And now let's proceed to the build itself. So the build works pretty obviously, and it is quite a recent build, at least in my own knowledge. Maybe I haven't learned about it whenever it was posted, but Rutu, at least in the Crucible League, did something like this, and I don't know if it was present before that. So basically you are using your Exsanguinate, you're self-casting it. It has pretty good physical hit damage part, then you're scaling your poison out of it. You're trying to get additional chaos damage on top of that physical part of the skill. You're gaining some fizz damage as extra chaos damage on rings. Then we're using gender bait that gives us like 7 link basically. We do have a bunch of different poison damage multipliers or increases, so the build itself is has very good DPS, especially whenever you're casting all the withers and all the things that should be on the enemy. The build's damage, it ramps up very hard. Pathfinder is pretty good with that. It helps you with clear, it helps you with the damage itself, with applying wither. It gives you, of course, flask charges. It increases utility flasks efficiency, and you're building off your flasks as well. So as you can see here, it's quite a tanky build as well, so it's all calculated against Pinnacle boss. Yeah, we do have spell suppression cap, a bunch of evasion, a pretty good number of life, and we even leech damage with the Vitality Watcher's Eye mode. So where is it here? Okay, I'll probably just show it in the items. So yeah, Watcher's Eye, as you can see here, % of damage leached as life while affected by Vitality, and we have pretty high life regen already. But then on top of that, our spell damage. So here it says all damage leached as life, so it doesn't really matter if it's spell or not. But it gives you even better recovery. So yeah, 800 life per second from life leech alone. Before that, you may want to maybe whenever you're just starting, you may want to respec your Pathfinder. There's other options for you to have sustain and stuff like that. But for the end version, it's very good and it works pretty well. So yeah, let's go for the talent tree, then skills, and then items for the build. So in talent tree, we are taking, as you can see here, so these things, they seem like it's a mana nodes, but the most important thing here is flasks applied to have increased effect. And here we do have some additional strength plus intelligence, which is pretty good for us to get additional attributes as well. We're going for maximum mana reservation efficiency, of course. We're taking some evasions, maximum life, talents, spell suppression. We're going for more spell suppression, more life, and again flask duration, flask effect. Probably earlier on with the build, you want some additional poison on hit chances, some different poison talents like this, for example. So toxic strikes, chance to poison on hit, damage over time multiplier for poison. Here we do have again additional poison hit with spell damage. You can get the curse mastery with additional chance and poison to poison on cursed enemies. So whenever you're starting this build, you may need a bit more chance to poison on hit with your spells. and probably you're going to be starting with Poisonous Concoction while you're leveling, and then turning into Exsanguinate whenever you're already in maps, and in early to mid tier maps is whenever you can switch to the Exsanguinate and do all the poison stuff, and it's gonna feel way better in terms of clear and speed of your build. Otherwise, we're going for Fizz for Fizz damage or plus chaos damage or damage over time mods. So Fizz damage plus chaos damage, as you can see here, yeah, it's physical damage and it still ramps our DPS output. Again, more Fizz damage. We're going for Whispers of Doom, which gives you an ability to cast an additional curse, and otherwise it's all just poison, chaos damage multipliers, and some jewels lockets. Mostly it's like that. Here's our Watcher's Eye with damage, Leech says life while affected by vitality, and some additional life regen by vitality, which is not bad either. Then we're using our Cluster Jewel. So Cluster Jewel, of course, for chaos damage. We do have here chance to gain Unholy Might. Even though we're not going crit chance and we're not really like a crit build, we still do have 9% of crit strike chance, which means that we will have Unholy Might up pretty efficiently. So yeah, some more chaos damage and just regular jewels with chaos damage over time multiplier, chaos damage increases, and some life as well. Here, Ancestral Vision, modifiers to chance to suppress spell damage also apply to chance to avoid elemental ailments at 50% of their value, so we are going to be immune to elemental ailments with this and a couple of mods on items. And as we can see here, our spell suppression chance is 100. So basically that's it when it comes to the talent tree and the jewels. Now when it comes to the skill gems and supports and all that stuff. So Exsanguinate, we are using. This is a pretty maxed out setup. You don't really need all the awakened stuff, but what you need is the gems themselves. So Chain is very good. It will help you spread an AoE for the build. Then Deadly Ailments, and yeah, it's essential for your map clear. Then Deadly Ailments just gives you a bunch of damage. Unbound Ailments, again, damage. Spell Echo for your cast time, because it's poisons. They don't really have cap in a number of poisons that you can apply to targets, so it's not like Ignite or Bleeding, which means that you want to have higher attack or cast speed. In this case, it's cast speed. So Spell Echo is very, very powerful for us, and efficacy. It gives you more damage and increased skill effect, increased duration. So yeah, that's it when it comes to our main 6-link. Then whatever, and to be honest, quite often people take Void Manipulation instead of efficacy, but it's up to you. That one gives you a bunch of damage as well. Okay, so we are using Divine Blessing setup with Inspiration, increased duration, and haste basically. So haste is our Divine Blessing aura that you're using just by itself. You're using manually, I would have to say. And with Inspiration, it will cost very, very low amount of mana. Let's see. So not Vol Haste, but regular haste. And as you can see, mana cost is 11. And if you were to not use the Divergent Inspiration in particular, it would have been a problematic thing to use, and you probably wouldn't be able to do that. But with all these things, it costs literally nothing for you, and it gives you a bunch of cast speed. But you can live without haste and just leave the Vol haste for yourself here. You will lose some damage, but it wouldn't be. So yeah, as you can see here, it's not that much. If you can squeeze it in, if you don't have an ability to get the Divergent Inspiration, it's not big of a problem. And even without the Vol haste, the damage, as you can see here, drops a little bit more than without haste, but just a Vol haste, it's not hard to get it and to stack it either. Okay, now with our auras, our regular ones, we are using Grace, Malevolence. Here there's Enlighten and Herald of Agony. Whenever you don't have and it's an Enlighten with pretty high level, if you don't have an ability to go for the Enlighten, probably just don't use the Malevolence. Because or if you can squeeze Malevolence and Grace but you can't squeeze Herald of Agony, then definitely be sure to have chance to poison on hit from your talents, enough for you to have enough of it, but still it may be better just to have Herald of Agony and Grace. You will have enough mana spare mana that you can use. Yes, you will lose out some damage with Malevolence. As you can see here, it's a pretty big damage output hit, and it's without the haste as well, but probably it's gonna be way easier for you to use the haste combined with Divine Blessing, even without the Giga Juiced Inspiration, if you wouldn't have Malevolence up, and yeah, basically just that. So Grace and Herald of Agony are the essential ones. Malevolence is a very good damage multiplier, but it comes in later. Okay, now we're using a Dread Banner with Awakened Generosity, and why would you think that we're gonna use it, right? Because Dread Banner applies to nearby enemies, it gives them less accuracy, and with the Generosity itself, Awakened version especially, it gives you increased aura area of effect, and non-curse auras from supported skills have increased effect. So basically the second part is the thing that we're mostly interested in, and that's not a curse aura. So yeah, basically nearby enemies will deal less damage and they will have less accuracy against your already quite evasive character. Then we're using Enhance, that gives quality to the Awakened Generosity even more, so that this effect will be even better. The Anomalous effect itself, so it's nearby enemies deal less damage, which it's an additional defensive layers for you. And Despair, it's your curse, you're casting it, and enemy has even less chaos resistance. Then with Steel Skin, we're using it manually in here, as you can see, because we're kinda short on the links. Vitality, Divergent one, you and nearby allies deal increased damage while on full life, which is good, but you can skip it. Vitality regen itself is not really utilized here. It reserves 40 mana, it doesn't really give you any regeneration, but it procs Watcher's Eye, that gives you life leech, and that gives you like 1% of life regen, which is not that bad as well. Flame Dash is just for dodges. Then Withering Stab applies Wither around you, which is very good, especially combined with some of our talents. And it gives you Elusive, which is definitely a good thing as well, and some movement speed. Then Arcane Surge increases our cast speed, level 1. And Plague Bearer is your additional damage whenever you're zooming through the maps, whenever you've stacked enough poisons, and it only takes one skill gem slot, skill socket, So Temporal Chains we're using. So here's our two curses. It's Despair from your self-casting Despair, and Temporal Chains is going to be applied by Asenath's Gentle Touch. You can play without it. If you don't have the talent for two curses yet, then probably it's going to be better for you to use Temporal Chains instead of Despair, with how it gives you both defenses and it prolongs the poison duration, but it all depends again. But whenever you have the ability to get those talents, you have enough levels, and you can get Asenath's Gentle Touch, it's going to be a very, very good quality of life. Auto-cursing enemies with Temporal Chains and then blasting them, it's very good. Okay, so now let's go for the items. With the items, when it comes to, in this particular build, it's not even two daggers. And as you can see here, yeah, we don't really have the Whirling Blades set up. Most builds, most other builds as well, use Whirling Blades with faster attacks, with 2 daggers. It's Cold Iron Point quite often as well. But you're not really strict. It's not so strict that you have to use Cold Iron Point. It's just good, and it's easy to buy. You don't really need to search for the item. So what do we have here? Increased cast speed, cast damage, +2 to level of our main spell, Exsanguinate. So it's not even that much worse than the Cold Iron Point, and cast damage multiplier, which is pretty massive in here. Yeah, this is what this dagger is. It's probably going to be quite expensive, but you can play without it. The most first things that are going to be way easier to get here for you is chaos damage over time multiplier and just regular chaos damage increase. I want to emphasize the cast speed. It's pretty important for your quality of life and for you not to get stuck in one single place. So if whenever you can squeeze it in here, definitely get it, because it gives you just so much more free time whenever you can not be stuck in place casting with Spell Echo. Okay, now the shield that gives us block chance, which is very good. Defensive stats as well, pretty nice. Some movement speed as well. So chance to suppress spell damage here, maximum life percentage, and flat. And this big amount of life is quite hard to get here, especially with the rings that we're using, but you can still get it. Very, very high flat regen modifier. Chance to avoid elemental ailments that will give us that. So basically with our chance from spell suppression, addition from the jewel and this mod here, we can get to elemental ailment immunities. Then gain some physical damage as extra chaos damage is just a big damage boost for us. On top of that, with our helmet, we're using increased temporal chains curse effect, which is very, very nice. Temporal chains prolong our poisons. It's one of not many modifiers to poison durations that we have access to. So some attributes: chance to spell suppression, evasion. You don't really need the armor itself here because we're not utilizing armor. Evasion is going to be just fine. Flat regen, because we need as much recovery as possible. Our recovery is not highest among all the other builds, especially with Exsanguinate costing life. Especially you will need that recovery earlier on whenever you're just building up. Maybe whenever you're not using Malevolence and you don't have enough mana reservation efficiency for that, you don't have Enlighten, then you can level up your Vitality additionally to have a bit more regeneration as well. But okay, let's go further. Gingerbait just gives you massive increases to damage of poison, duration of poison. It gives you all res, and it gives you basically a 7 link with additional chance to poison with your skill, just because it gives you a chance to poison support gem. Yeah, and the corruption here is +2 to level of socketed duration gem, which is very, very nice as well. Then with gloves, we are using Asenath's Gentle Touch, so it auto-curses enemies with temp chains. Then your non-aura curses you inflict are not removed from dying enemies. Enemies near corpses affected by your curses are blinded. So blind is again even more decreases, even harder decrease to the enemy's accuracy. So you are more able to dodge their skills. And enemies killed near corpses affected by your curses explode, dealing % of their life as physical damage. It's very, very powerful for your clear. It's going to feel so good. And yeah, some corruptions, again, increased cast speed and level to socketed aura gems are pretty good as well. Then with our boots, straight up movement speed as fast as possible, flat max life, flat regen, some resistances, and spell suppression chance, and that's it. When it comes to the Eldritch implicits and stuff, you can get here pretty massive things like % of physical damage as extra case, action speed increase, but it's going to be adding costs to the build as well. So we're allocating Cannibalistic Rite With our anointment, we do have here a bunch of attributes. Increased spell damage, to be honest, itself is not really that big. But the cast speed is very important. +2 level of all fizz gems is massive. Ally resistances and life. With our rings, it's 2 unique ones. So it's the main thing here is it gives you 70 big percentage of physical damage as extra chaos damage, because rolls can differ, and it gives you pretty good chaos resistance. So it's with these 2 rings, it's going to be very easy to be capped on chaos res, but they decrease your maximum life and your maximum energy shield, which can be painful as well, especially maximum life. So for 50% reduced. It's not less, it's reduced. So it would have been 190% in here otherwise. Now, when it comes to the belt, it's heavy belt here. It helps you with strength, but it shouldn't be a heavy belt. It just is. Maximum life, flask charges, gained flask effect duration. Because we are Pathfinder, we are utilizing flasks to a greater extent. They are very powerful and important for us. So now when we are using Onslaught, Silver Flask with increased evasion rating. A Quicksilver Flask with increased cast speed, so the flask itself gives you movement speed and you gain additional cast speed. Then Topaz and Ruby Flasks for less fire and lightning damage gain. They have pretty high duration as well, and then on top of it, reduced mana cost of skills during this effect, which is massive and we need it. It is just basically, especially for your divine blessing, it's going to be crucial for you to being able to use it. And they both give you very good defensive points, and they give you resistances if you're lacking of them, and you can sustain them pretty good, so you can rely on them and get some shortage of modifiers on your gear, so you don't really need to get so much gear with resistances if you can sustain these 2 flasks pretty well. And then Taste of Hate, which is a Sapphire Flask that gives you cold resistance as well and less cold damage as well in the first place. Then part of physical damage from hits taken as cold damage, which is very powerful defensive modifier as well. And then gain fizz damage as extra cold. We're not really interested in that at all. Avoid being chilled and frozen are pretty good as well. So basically that's why we're using the Pathfinder. Gives us an ability to cap our resistances and to get this less elemental damage taken modifiers through the flasks and not gear, and that's why the modifiers for flask duration, charges, effect are so powerful. Yeah, and that's basically it when it comes to this build. It is it's not really that easy to get going. It can be without all the utility flasks, with all the constraint on your additional resistance modifiers on gear, this build is going to be way less tanky as it can possibly be. So whenever you're hitting more currency, whenever you're hitting better gear, whenever you're able to spend more talent points on flask talents, and you can get all those flasks and they are running constantly and you're getting all those charges. So whenever that happens, that's when the defenses, and whenever you're getting Watcher's Eye with Life Leech, that's whenever your recovery and defensives are getting into place. Before that, you still have pretty good damage, so whenever you're starting your maps, but the defenses of the build can be lackluster for some time, especially if you're just starting in maps and you're swapping from Poisonous Concoction to this build. But it's still a very powerful build. It's quite popular build and it deserves its place. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you're having a good time, and subscribe to the channel. Goodbye.